Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for 9/5/2025 to 9/12/2025. As always, we're going to look at the full range of the flow. We have one piece of flow from last week to recap as well. We had a great week of flow, a lot of high, strong returns on a lot of flow. We're going to look at the flow feed. We're going to kind of look at things that stuck out. Really great video for those that are beginners. Even a good refresher for those that may be advanced flow traders as well, just to kind of see everything. Unusual Whales adds a lot of stuff, so it's kind of nice just to get a refresher here and there on the flow. But we're going to get started here, and as always, for those that are new to joining, everything is posted. I post everything in real time. I don't edit my posts. I don't cherry pick winners. Everything is recapped in our recappable areas. So let us get started here. And first up, we have the 919 C94 puts. These are from last Friday. Again, if you're new to this, I recap the Friday flow in the next week because typically we don't always see flow run on Fridays that just came in. So we only have a couple losers this week, so I'm not going to stick too far on those and dive super deep into those. But again, our flow coming in here Friday, 189 was the entry up here. Probably sells at the ask. Obviously, very short term expiration now. Theta's going to eat these away. But that whale, if they truly are in those for puts, they would be down 91%. Which, if you're trading that yourself, you should never be down that much on anything. Should always practice risk management going into trades and just kind of having a strategy when you're entering the trades and all that. But that one was our loser from last week that carried over. Up next, we have the 10-3 GOOG 235 puts. We are going to pop this back to Monday, and we're going to look at that intraday flow here. So we had 4 hits here. This one's interesting because when you come here and look at that, you can see that a lot of that volume, none of that volume actually really carried over. We actually lost 15 contracts on that. So this whale actually closed intraday. We don't know what was, the first 2 are probably the openers and these are probably the exits at the end. But we got in here. 565 was actually our entry. But these did make a good move into the next day as well. So I'm going to pop this back out to Tuesday here. Actually, we're going to pop it out to the week. And I do want to show everybody the raw flow here first, actually, as well, too. Sometimes when that ask side flow, usually I tell people to kind of verify that open interest the next day. I'm going to see if it'll let me actually go back and look at it. Sometimes when the flow's a little odd like that, it doesn't. So this one's not going to be a super good example, but we'll look at the candle that we got in on. So, you see that big volume coming in here, that big premium coming in here. I did have some flow before this that was reading, but again, sometimes when the flow's back and you have open interest volume not carrying over, it doesn't always update, and sometimes it can get a little funky trying to go back. But we will look at, I'm going to pop this out to the 7-day view. So these actually, so again, here's our entry, 565. These did make a small move into the day, and they did open up as well. So, you can see that your yellow line is just the contract fill. These came up, hit 635 on the day. And actually, they opened at 650 here on the 9th. You hit a high there of 650 on the 9th. So that's a 15% return. And what I like to tell people is when I'm just taking flow trades that are hitting the flow feed, if I'm taking them in live time, I like to see at least 10-15% for a minimum of a return. Anything below 10% I consider a loss. But 10-15% is a good return on a trade. A lot of people just see 300, 200 big percent wins and think that's normal. You're going to be very more consistent in your trading journey if you're taking very solid base hits. And that's not saying that you're not going to hit 200, 300% gainers, but that takes time and that takes a lot of kind of learning how to adjust your stops up to secure the most profits. But again, like I tell people, when you see profits, if you're up 15%, you should at least be setting your stops at break even so you can kind of secure some profits, or at least, I mean, break even. You shouldn't be giving up 15% over and over and over again. But again, here is your move here, seeing that hit that high there on the 9th here at 650. So again, 565 to 650, that's a 15.04% move. Up next, we have the 1031 QQQ 537 puts. And another thing, I'm just going to kind of throw tips and tricks in these videos. I always kind of do. But longer term contracts. When you see longer term contracts, the way I like to think of it is that whale has a longer view on that trade, maybe playing out. Doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to take 30 days for that trade to move. There's a good example from Hertz today towards the end. It was a 70 days expiration contract, ran same day. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes when I see the longer term contracts, I do like to kind of maybe size in slowly, knowing that. But again, different tips and tricks. But flow here, you can see all of that coming in on the 8th. Looks like they added here on the 10th. So that whale is still in these, but they are down 28%. Average on the contracts was 485. Contracts are trading at 345. Down 28% there. No. So, and keep in mind, again, do whatever you want with some of these contracts that are down. I know there's members that like to find discounted entries. Like this would be a good discounted entry. We have FOMC coming up next week. Never know how we're going to react. So up next, we have the now 912, 965 calls. And when we look at these actually ran the same day. So we're going to start with a further out view on this one because I want to show everybody why you should be adjusting up stops. This whale, here's our entry here, 580,000 on them, or 583,000 in premium, and then 1,400 contracts. But these ran all the way up that same day, and now they're worthless. So we don't know if that whale was selling at the ask. We don't 100% know what they were doing with that trade. That's one thing. When you're following flow, you will never know exactly what they're doing. You can guess. You can have your rules that you follow, which I have my rules with the IV increasing, spot price increasing, all of that. But this is why you should always manage your risk and take profits. These expired today. These were weeklies. So knowing that it's a short-term trade, I'm probably going to take profits as soon as I see a good return. And this is exactly why. Because these expired worthless. So let's pop this back to Monday when that flow came in. So here's our flow. Again, seeing a lot of net call premium here. And this is at 105 IM Central Time. So coming in here, 105, you can see pretty much kind of right when that flow came in, you saw that call volume come up and a spike in that net call premium. Now when we look at the raw flow here as well, let's pop this back. So you can see this flow coming in here, 37.48 is your IV. So how I like to read that flow feed, I'm following that IV up. I'm looking at that spot. I'm looking at the bid ask. Those are my three main columns. I want to see that spot coming in at the ask here. You see that IV coming up here. Good sign. I kind of like to get the flow around it. Doesn't always correlate. I mean, with that one, it's about a minute off. Pay attention to the time as well. That's another column you should always pay attention to. But like this here, 1305.20, this is all the way up. This we can probably 99.99% say this is the same person. So that IV's increasing, spot increasing, flow looks good, flow reads as buy, and very stress-free, quick trade here into close. Actually hit the high here same day, 658 here. So that's a 60.49% return. So knowing that these are weeklies, I'm probably going to take some profit knowing Theta is a little more aggressive on weeklies, obviously. And when you come over to Tuesday as well, you can see we kind of opened up high. And even if you swung these, I'm going to have a stop on right away because these just deteriorated the next day. So good move on those. Again, 410 to 658, 60.49% on those. Up next, the 919 ANET 146 calls. And I do want to touch on one thing here. So you're only seeing the smaller premium on here. That's just because when you come in here, I'm going to pop this back 7 days. So you can see here, this is that full trade here. When you come in here, I just pick one of these. I just save it so I can come back and recap it. And it's just what gets saved in here. So it's just that piece of the flow that you're saving. It's not that full flow unless you select everything. But like here, so I mean, if you select that, it's just going to say 3K. So I know I had a couple questions on that in a couple videos, but that's why it's showing that. So again, coming here, okay, I don't know why I backed out of there. Again, you can see that's 816 contracts, 265, 216K in premium. So let's look at that flow feed now. So always important to look at that flow feed too, just to kind of see what happens. Like this one's saying it's a repeated hits descending fill. Now, if you see that at first glance, you're going to think, oh, that fill, that spot price is decreasing. Well, I need to go in and actually look at that flow and see where it's decreasing, what that spot is, the difference between the bid ask and all that. So we'll start here. So this is where our flow comes in, IV spike, just following this up, following this up, following this up. Okay, here's where our descending fill comes in. You're coming in 1 cent below the ask on a wider bid ask, and it's smaller size here. Now, if this was a big chunk of the trade, I'd kind of maybe look around, see how the other flows reacting around it, all that. But 4 contracts and your IV comes back up, looks good to me there. And you can see all that size really coming in after that anyways. And again, another drop here, just 1 contract. And you see that IV come right back up here, coming in at the ask that entire time besides those 2 spots. And when we pop out here, and again, another good example of you should always be kind of taking profits. So on the 8th here, you can see most of that volume carrying over. Just kind of a lot of contracts, not really coming off the open interest, don't know what's getting passed off. You got to look out for yourself and your profits. But these moving from that 265, hitting that high of 1220 here, I mean, kind of moved up that same day a little bit and then just rocketed the next 2 sessions, hitting that high there of 1220, which is a 360.38% return. So there you have it. There is a bigger return there. But good move on those ones. Then we have the 919 VFC 15.5 calls. Again, here's your flow. So 6,400 contracts, almost 6,500, 308,000 premium. We look at that raw flow here. And like this one, you're not getting repeated hits or anything. So this is kind of why you don't just look at the flow alerts by themselves. We'll see if... Oh, well, I lied. There we go. It's a flow alert. So a good textbook example here, I can tell you right now, just looking at this quickly, that IV is increasing all the way up. And you see that spot price increasing 45, 46, 47. That is pretty much textbook flow there, where you see that IV increasing as well with that spot price. So those could have got profits a couple times on these. Looks like most of that's still in. But, I mean, you're hitting a high there that same day, hitting highs here, and 9/11 was your high there with that flow hitting 62, I believe. 62 here on the 9th is your high. That next day that it carried over. So it's a 31.91% gain. So good trade there as well. And just kind of looking at that net premium also, I'm going to pop this out. You can see you have calls coming in here. You're looking at these on the 8th. See that net call premium up there, good sign. Then a big day of net call premium that next day as well too. So VFC actually running a lot more here on the 11th, but theta eating contracts on the weekly kind of impacts the profits on that. But again, good move on those. So up next is a really good example here of, we're going to have to keep it at 7 days here for, actually I'm going to come back here and we're going to look at this on the 9th. So good trade here overall, but I want to pop this back here. So this is the part that caught my attention, and this is a big thing to kind of watch, especially with floor trades. You'll typically see floor trades get kind of modified and canceled a lot more versus the regular just option flow. So just be cautious with that, but let's see. So good example here. So here's where your flow starts to come in. You see that IV spike here. Again, you're coming in at the ask, IV increases. And then when that original floor trade came in, 6,600 contracts at 340 for 2.25 million. Again, that strike between it is just going to tell you that that trade was canceled or modified. Now, Unusual Whales tries to get you that data as soon as they can. It's just a reporting thing on how that comes in. So that trade did get canceled, and now you see a little bit later on here, you have that same amount come in here, but you don't have a bid and ask here, so it kind of makes it a little tough. Obviously, a lot of that kind of canceling and all that can kind of mess with the chain, but IV there, not really the best, but we had our first IV to come off of, and you actually didn't see this reported right away. But when we come back here, you can see all your contracts here. Majority of that carried over, so you know that whale did get back in those, and you knew there was a bullish bias. You can see your net call premium up here. And these did kind of run same day, kind of closed up about 381, well, 341, but then when we pop back here, I should have just stayed there. Come back 7 days. Here's your move into the next day, massive move up. These hit a high of 6 here on the 10th, so that next day, giving us a return of 76.47%. Good move on those. Let's see, AMD, the 926 160 calls. Pop this out. We gotta do one more of these. So okay, our entry was here, 1,900 contracts, 365, 716 in total premium. Again, just kind of looking at this, 99. Can see some of that volume did get taken off that same day. 1,900 contracts, about that carried over, so it's hard to tell exactly how much of that whale carried over, but we have that big spike in the morning here, and then you have some of that bid side flow come in here. Tell me that whale probably closed those or passed those off onto somebody else that next day. Just with that drop in that open interest on the 11th here. So that was your big spike on the 10th. And they hit a high of 867 here on the 10th, so 137.53%. Looks like that whale exited pretty close to the top. Good move on those. So TTD, again, pop this down to 3 days now that we can see it. Good flow here, and I want to pop the net premium so you just can kind of see. Again, a lot of put volume that day. Net put premiums up, and I mean, this one just rocketed right away, and you're hitting your high here actually yesterday on the 11th. But just looking at that raw flow feed again. Come in here. Again, you see that IV spike. Your flow's coming in at the ask. Very good sign there. And that was a move from 140 to 425. So that's a 203.57% max return. And again, just because it's the max return doesn't mean you're going to get that. Just adjust your stops up. I just like to show that full range for everybody. Up next, we have the 10-3 Intel 25 calls. Again, here is your entry here. 84, 4,000 contracts, 342K in premium. Moved that same day into close and then opened up pretty high there as well. Hitting your high here on the 11th of 110, so 30.95% on those. Chopped most of the day, and you can see we kind of dropped here today. Hood puts, these ones are a little longer term here, 70 days on those. move same day, and we'll look at that raw flow feed again. Just see that IV. I mean, you see that IV drop there, then it pops again there. Spot prices increasing, signs of a buy, especially with the heavier premium in size there. But small little move same day on those. Dropped yesterday, and then they came back up today. 777 was the high on those, so whales up about 11%. Whales, actually, contracts closed at 724 today, so slightly green. They've only had a max return of 11% on those, but closed green today. And so next up, we have the 919 MSTR 340 calls. Really good move on these ones. Here, I want to pop this actually back to yesterday. So you can see this was actually our entry here at 455. Small little drop, and then we ran up and then just kind of chopped most of the day. Whale adding a lot to those. I mean, most of that volume carrying over into today. And I mean, that net call premium was just, oh, that's from the 9th. Sorry, the 11th here. So you saw us kind of pull back down here, and that call volume still kind of stayed pretty up. I mean, you got a little ask side put premium coming in towards the end of the day, but a lot of call volume throughout the day. And then today, obviously, big rally into the end of the day as well. But these, again, just kind of looking at these. I mean, here's your entry and then your big pop today. These hit a high of 740 today, so that's a 60.87% return. Now on something like this, again, knowing their weeklies, I'm more than likely going to take profits so I don't get my contracts ate up as bad over the weekend. Up next, the 1017 open 6 puts. This one, contract numbers are a little weird, so I'm going with a different number on these, but entry here, can see only about half that kind of carrying over, and to me that's kind of, it's hard to know how much of that whale's actually carrying over. My guess is, I mean, 52 there, and then 52, I probably don't see that whale exiting for no gain, but hard to know. And our contract for the high of today is showing 80. I'm going just with this high here of 60, so I'm going to kind of undercut it a little bit. But this 52 to 60, that's a 15.38% gain. So getting some time on those. Obviously, open got crushed today. So on to Friday here. So we have Hertz up first, and this one was posted on X as well. Pretty much textbook flow here. Go in here and find it. So again, you see that IV spike right there. Flow coming in at the ask. IV spikes again there. Flow coming in at the actually spot price increases and it's coming in at the ask. Reads as a buy. Just a smooth, easy trade today, and hit the high of 81, closed near the high. That's a 37.10% gain. Pop this back. Oh, sorry, I want to go back here one more time. Like, I mean, you just see this, and it's net call premium just spiking throughout the day and a lot of call volume. So good move on those. Tesla, we were getting hammered with calls all day. Now, this is where you can kind of use other flow as well to kind of back up your trade if your flow doesn't match right. So like here, okay, my IV increases, coming in at the ask, and we're just following this up. Now I see my IV decrease. Now if this flows by itself, I'm probably going to discount it and not even look at it, just with that flow kind of, or that IV just bouncing around. Then you see we come back up here, and then we're dropping again, up, down, just kind of all over the place. Now, something I like to do, I'm going to just open a new tab here and show everybody. So knowing that when I come into I have my flow feed on all day, pop that there. So I knew this flow was more than likely a buy, because when we look at this, it came in at 9:15, again, Central Time. Look at all these Tesla calls that we had right kind of before that flow came in. So you're getting a lot of Tesla calls hitting that flow feed, and if I even remove Tesla, it might be a better example here just to show everybody how it's hitting that feed with everything else. So here's your flow feed. You're seeing Tesla start coming in, Tesla coming in there, Tesla coming in here. So then I see that not another piece of Tesla, good move there. Or I'm thinking, okay, well that IV's, I'm gonna kind of read this as a buy, knowing that there's a lot of Tesla flow coming in. Net call premiums up, call volumes up, and these made a good intraday move. 423 was the entry. Actually, I have 435 here as the entry. And these hit a high of 660 here on the day, so I'm going to go 435 to 660. That's a 51.72% gain. Again, small pop, kind of came back down and just slow grinded up and didn't close near the high, but closed at 570, which is a pretty good return still as well. Meta, again, another good one today. 340, small little drop, and then we came back up, hit 440 for a high, closed at 386. Contracts look good there. Kind of some mixed net premiums there, and at the time you could see that rise in the net call premium. Just again looking at that flow and just watching these videos over and over, you should see that this flow is all pretty much uniform. Obviously there's some outliers here and there, but overall the flow is going to be uniform. IV spikes, spot coming in at the ask, good sign there. And probably taking a little off here, 315. Could have cut a little. We won't know until Monday until that open interest changes. But again, good trade there. Intraday move of 29.41%. Contracts 340 to 440. Then last but not least, the BABA 1017 180 calls. Again, another one that made a good move today. Come down here. We're going to look at that raw flow. You just see that IV pop, drops a little bit here, but you're coming in at the ask. Just got to look at that full flow feed. So IV's dropping here, and then typically you'd think, okay, well, these are sells. Well, you're still coming in at the ask. Your IV respikes here, and that spot price increases. So that's telling me these are buys, and then you have that other flow coming in here towards the end here where that IV spikes and that spot rises again. So again, good move there. Another solid trade where it just moved intraday, 201. Here's your trade. Hitting 245 here for a high, 17.79%. Closing at 236, right near the high. But kind of a shorter week with some flow here. Again, I'm always just trying to look for quality versus quantity of flow. But that is all I have for this week's flow recap. If you're interested in trying unusual whales, I do have a 10% discount code on anything that you need there. And if you're interested in joining Stock Hub, description is below as well. Everything's in the description. Have a great weekend, everyone.